What is your degree of confidence this is something that can actually happen before President Biden leaves the Oval Office and Donald Trump takes it?
I don't want to jinx it, but I do think that we're in a much better place now. And one of the reasons is you, in essence, have two different presidents working on this. And this isn't just a president-elect with Trump. This is a former president who has a team, who has a record in the Middle East. Remember that Trump's 2020 record in the Middle East was taking out Qasem Soleimani, aggressive maximum economic pressure campaign against Iran, which you guys reported about extensively. So I think, and it very much seems to be with the blessing of both administrations. You have Jake Sullivan and Brett McGurk working on this, but there has also been all the reports of Steve Witkoff, who is President Trump's new Middle East envoy, Mike Waltz working closely behind the scenes as well. So I think all of these leaders in the Middle East, they know the former president, now the president-elect, they know his team. So it's kind of a unique moment in history where you have two presidents and their teams working on the ceasefire at the same time. So if we're going to get it, I think it should happen soon. President Trump has made it clear. He's issued several threats to Hamas now that he needs to have the American hostages home before January 20th.
Morgan, I wanted to turn the clock back a little bit to your time in the administration. You were there when then President Trump helped forge the Abraham Accords. Yeah. We are at a very different place in history right now. He has a very different starting point as he prepares to take office. Where does he take Middle East policy in the book from here, with Syria, with Israel, with Iran, with all of this?
So one of the positive things is that the Abraham Accords held, right? And that was something since October 7th that was a question for all of us. You saw initially the Biden team had a reluctance to embrace the Abraham Accords, and then they fully embraced them. They named an Abraham Accords envoy. It was a rare moment of bipartisan consensus on an issue in the Middle East, because there's been clear divergence between the two parties on Iran. I think your question's fascinating. So there's obviously the mess that has to be dealt with in Syria. In many ways, this is a repeat of what Trump had to deal with in 2018. Remember, there was a physical caliphate of ISIS in Iraq and Syria when Trump took office. President Obama really started to unleash the military towards the end of his presidency, once they had that physical caliphate. And after he sort of made that, gaffe about calling ISIS the JV squad, Trump then really took on ISIS and destroyed that physical caliphate. Now we're in a place where ISIS can stop Taylor Swift concerts in Europe. They're threats, right? ISIS-K, ISIS Khorasan, the affiliate in Afghanistan, has a foothold in every province. And so I think everybody is incredibly concerned about what could emanate from Syria. With HTS, this is, of course, the rebel group that has taken control in Syria. I would caution the Biden administration not to lift sanctions. They are a designated terror group in the United States. I think it should be a wait-and-see approach, a trust but verify. In my opinion, that should be a carrot that the Trump administration should be able to wield in Syria. The big question, really, I think where Trump's going to go in Israel. Where Trump's going to go in Saudi Arabia. The big question is where he goes on Iran. Clearly, he got out of the JCPOA. He was very critical of the Iran nuclear deal. He called it one of the worst deals ever negotiated. Yeah. He, of course, took out Qasem Soleimani and had that maximum economic pressure campaign. The difference is now is that sanctions have not been enforced over the past 4 years. Iran was enriched. We had October 7th. We had the ballistic missile attacks from Iran emanating to the physical territory of Israel. I mean, I could go through the list. I don't have enough time. Your producers will cut me off. But really importantly is the Iran deal, the major provisions of it are sunsetting. It's getting ready to expire. So, yes, there are snapback sanction options available to the E3, to France, Germany, and the UK. There's snapback sanctions that could happen at the UN. That may be something that Elise Stefanik wants to take on. But, when you talk about, the whole debate that we've had over a decade in Washington of getting into the JCPOA, getting out of the JCPOA, trying to get back into the JCPOA, that debate in many ways is largely, going to be somewhat dead in the Trump administration because of the deal, the major parts of the deal sunsetting and expiring.
I'd like to ask you about another deal Trump is very clear he wants to pursue, and that is one to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. We heard more about this from him just yesterday, and we learned today that Ukraine is reportedly responsible for the assassination of a high-ranking Russian general in Moscow. And I wonder if you see this as a mechanism for that deal to get closer, or if it's only going to bring it farther away.
Well, all wars end virtually in the same way, which is typically it's a negotiated settlement that no one likes. Every once in a while you have embarrassing and disastrous moments like we had in August of 21 when we lost 13 Americans on our way out of Afghanistan. But for the most part, it tends to be negotiated settlements. Some people like them, some people don't. And everybody, whenever you come to the end of a war, which Zelensky has signaled for quite some time now that he understands that that's where the Ukrainians need to go, everyone's looking for leverage. Whenever they get near the end, everyone's trying to improve their bargaining position. So I don't think that President Trump or General Keith Kellogg, who he's appointed to be sort of an envoy to this conflict, I don't think they're going to show all of their cards now. I think that President Trump, in that press conference that you showed earlier, took a tactic that I've seen him take for many years, which is he says nice things about the leaders, in public, but then in private, it's a much different tone. It's a much tougher negotiation. So ultimately, do I know exactly how Trump will negotiate the end of the war? I don't know that anybody knows. But I think that I expect both parties to try and do everything they can to have as much leverage as possible at that negotiating table.